Hello, this is Victor, and here I'm doing a video to talk about soft scores, as the video responds also to the Vince Venturella and take account he opened this topic to be discussed during this week. If you want to know to watch the video from Vince Venturella, you can check the link in the description below. But here I want to give my opinion on what I see about the soft scores. So first of all, soft scores are the score wise. We're talking about tournament games, and we define soft scores as the points that you get for painting work and for sportsmanship. So yeah, if you are a good player, you get points, and then the other players are doing what if you are a fair player or not, and if they get fun playing with you. And the other is the paint job score. So I think in Warhammer and in tournaments, I think it's good that we have the score for the best general, the score for the best painting army, and the score for the more sportsmanship, or the player that is the best in the sportsmanship. And then it's good to add the 3 to see who has the points overall in the tournament. And I like a lot the tournaments that have the 3 small prizes for each category, and then they have the prize for the overall tournament winner. And why I like that? Because I think this hobby have different aspects, and I think by covering these 3 aspects you try to cover more of the hobby. So for me, Warhammer and Warhammer 40k is not only play, it's playing, collecting, having in your army with a theme, and being a good player not only means being the best player, also or the best in strategy, also means to get fun and make the others get fun with you when playing the game. So this is why I think all these scores are important. Yeah, and he was asking in what percentage we think is fair to score this. I think the best, and when I see this in tournaments, for me the best tournaments is when all the strategy in the games is 50% of the points, more or less, and then the other 50% is divided between sportsmanship and paint job. And normally it's more in paint job and a little bit and less on sportsmanship. And I think this is quite fair. Even though this brings some consequences. For example, what happens when people is buying painted armies, when you commission paint jobs, or when you have some of the units that are commissioned. Are you allowed to have painting scores? No, how you have to take these scores? What I see in most of the tournaments is you get your points, but at least is what I have seen here in Europe for painting work at the tournaments that I go. And I have to say that I'm not a hard tournament player. I don't go a lot of tournaments. Maybe I go 3-4 tournaments during the year, that's all. But what I like to see is that I think it's fair they have the points. Why? Because at the end the other player is enjoying a painted army on the table. Okay, yeah, he didn't do the paint job, but he's coming to the tournament with a painted army. So the other player also enjoys to have a painted army in front, and if it's well painted, it's nice to play anyway. What it's considered is that if you win the prize, normally in some tournaments they ask you if you paint or not this army, and you have to be fair there, because if someone and I have seen this in the GT in Spain, if you don't communicate that the army is commissioned, and then they realize that the army is commissioned, you lose all the points and you are disqualified from the tournament, because they give you the points for painting job, but you are not eligible to win the best painted army because you didn't do the effort to paint. And I think this is a fair way to do that. So you get the points for the tournament score. You can go for they don't. Yeah, you are not getting penalized on the overall pointing, but you are not eligible for the best painted army. And I think this is a fair way to tackle this point. So I'm seeing this from the side of a person that I paint all my armies. I try to paint to the highest standard that I can. So for me it's fair that another one that paid the paint job is getting the points, but is not eligible to win the prize, to win the best painted army prize. The sportsmanship also I have seen, and this is very rare, but I have seen cases where friends are scoring. If they play against each other, they try to score their friends better than people that is not their friend, and this is the way that sometimes it's tricky. So we always expect that everything is done with a goodwill, but we have to be careful. There's people that tries to cheat even in the sportsmanship. I remember a case in a tournament where the girlfriend was playing also in that tournament, and the girlfriend played against one of the other players that were fighting for the first place in the tournament. So what the boyfriend asked to her girlfriend is, please give him a very bad scoring on sportsmanship, in that way I guaranteed to be first. I think this is for me the only problem I can see on the sportsmanship that can be used also to take off points in a way that is not fair. So sportsmanship I think should be used, and should be used in a fair way, but is one of these points that can be used also to trigger or not more points or to give or no more points to another player, and if it's used in in unfair way, can really make this score completely useless. So and then of course the best general, I think it's if you are in a tournament you want to see what is the best in a strategy, and the overall for me should be the addition of all these scores. I've been also in the past in championships where they were giving a score to the building of the army, to the list. So this is very subjective. So but the referees or the people organizing the tournament were giving a score depending if your army was balanced not, and was them or not them. Even I've been in tournaments where they were asking you if you have write down some fluff for your army, and they give small points for the fluff. And even here in Belgium they give you points if you give your list in advance. They give some points that encourage people to be fair and to have a balanced list. So I think all this is good to try to minimize the impact of the power players. I have played all the tournaments, from tournaments that they don't give a single point to the painting job to tournaments that give almost 50% of the points on painting job. And what I like a lot is when I go tournaments where they explain you how the points for the painting job is going to be done. No, they say if all your army is painted, and here we go with the topic, if you have to have all your army painted on for a tournament. But here what they say is if all your army is painted you have X points, if all your army is painted and all the miniatures are based you have a little bit more points, if you have conversions some more points, if you have a very nice paint job then there is a part subjective that the organizers can give more points or not if depending on the painting job, but at least they give a scale and you know how fair, and they try to make this in a way that is fair and everybody knows how to get the points and how to the points are given for each army. So I think soft scores are very interesting. I think in this hobby should be mandatory in any tournament, and is the way for the people to encourage the paint job, is the way for the people to encourage being a good player, in the way that you're also fair player, and I think we have to push for fair play, painted armies, and have the best strategy that you can. The other question he was opening is that do we think that tournaments only have to admit painted armies? I will say here I'm more opening. I would like to open tournaments to people that is starting and didn't have time to paint all the armies. So at least for small tournaments, I will say for GTs I think you should ask for painted armies for high level, but for local tournaments, I think it's okay for me to ask to allow non-painted armies, to allow armies that are in the way to be painted. I think it's good, and it's the way to promote people that is starting in the hobby. What I consider not acceptable is armies that have a high level of proxies. And when I mean high level of proxies, I have cases where the army is not represented with the miniatures that so the miniatures that are on the table are not the army, and then it's confusing for the player, especially for the player that you play against, and when the proxies and all this stuff is driving to discussions, to confusion, I think is when it's not acceptable, and especially in 40k, where you have to be sure what are the weapons that are in the units, how are they equipped, and what unit is what. Even in when the demons were broken in the past, there were people playing demons without any demon on the table. I think this should be unacceptable in any tournament. On the other side, alternative miniatures used as a proxy but painted and try to make your army different. This should be acceptable if they don't drive confusion, and if they drive confusion, they should ask for paper or something that is not driving that. Okay, so summarizing, soft scores, I'm completely in favor. I think they should be there, and I think soft scores should be about between, I will say between 50-30% of the points on the tournament. And I think it's encouraging the paint job. So, and I have to say that in the tournaments I went, I won a little more than once the best painted army, and I think it's encouraging me to go again, even if I been completely destroyed because my army is not competitive, or because I like to use armies that are not strongly or not super competitive. Is the way for me to encourage to go with other armies. So yeah, soft scores there. In small tournaments, I don't have problems with non-painted armies, and we have to be very careful with the proxies and people abusing the proxies just because they want. So because for me there are two types of proxies. There is the proxy that you find a nice miniature and you want to use this miniature in your army to have something different, to have something that is giving your point of distinguish on the army. I think this is the nice way to use a proxy. Then there is a proxy that the people is just grabbing some miniatures that they have in their collection to represent a new codex that have appeared, or new book that have appeared in the game, and they just want to use the last version of the codex and to be able to win at any cost. So I think the second type of proxies should not be acceptable. Of course, a small, I would say proxy, when you say, okay, this sergeant that has the plasma gun doesn't have the plasma gun because they don't have the points, or have a power shot and is not represented, but it's a sergeant. I think this level of equipment on characters should be more or less acceptable. So that's all. That's all what I want to explain about the soft course. And yeah, and I love the tournaments where they give points for other things that not only to win the battles. So I hope, yeah, I would like also to know your opinion, and this is more or less a little bit of video response to Vince Venturella and the topic he opened for this week. So thanks a lot for watching. I want to know your opinion, and see you again later. Bye!